he was so busy yesterday.
Gosh.
He needed an AC in there, just pouring sweat from covering all those huge signings on Free Agent Frenzy on TSN yesterday. Dregs, you made it.
Made it. Yeah, made it. It was more the lead up, obviously, right? Like there was some late night, early morning type of nonsense going on around the National Hockey League. And, I've reached a point, age in my career, and I could say this now as we celebrated the retirement of Bob McKenzie to conclude our coverage yesterday. But I'm like, 2:00 in the morning, whatever night it was, Sunday, I don't know. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I got to get that tweet out because I got to update this one. But that's the appetite for the National Hockey League fan, I suppose. But yeah, yesterday it had its bizarreness, right? Legitimately there was the threat of offer sheets. There was the threat of offer sheets. And anytime you get that, now you've got my interest because it doesn't happen very often. Yeah, I know it happened with Edmonton and the St. Louis Blues. But K'Andre Miller is not in Carolina without the threat of an offer sheet. That's just the reality of the situation. And Bo Byram, keep an eye on that one with the Buffalo Sabres, because I can assure you that Darren Ferris is working on that possibility. Yeah. And Ferris is also the agent for Broberg, right? Who ended up with the offer sheet in St. Louis. So not his first rodeo, and it's a pressure mechanism. That's what it was yesterday. The Hurricanes basically telling the New York Rangers, look, we'll happily make a trade with you, but we're going to offer sheet this guy. So which way do you want it to go?
Did you hear the same on Bouchard? I'd heard that there was a team preparing one for Bouchard, and that's what got the Oilers to get that done across the line.
Could have been Carolina too. They're ready to step in one. There's no doubt about that. And that speaks to Tom Dundon, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, and just his appetite to improve his team. But everybody kind of frowns at. We don't, collectively as analysts or media anymore because it's fun to talk about it. But I think generally speaking, most managers would go, well, I got to be careful with that stuff because if it happens, if I do it to him, somebody's going to do it to me. Well, that's fine. It's a mechanism inside the collective bargaining agreement. You can use it as a tool, and you can use the threat of the offer sheet as a tool. And yeah, I think that's exactly why Bouchard got done so quickly. But I think that's a fair deal for the Oil. I do. 4 years. Bouchard, if he plays as well as they need him to play, not sporadically, more often than not, then it's a heck of a deal. And he'll cash in again after that 4-year extension expires. But K'Andre Miller, fellas, was an interesting story to follow. The Calgary Flames definitely were in on K'Andre Miller. Definitely in on him. Now, when Carolina threatened the offer sheet, then Chris Drury and the New York Rangers had to go, ooh, okay, hold on a minute here. We have to focus on making this deal with the Carolina Hurricanes. And I have an idea. I'm not going to share who the players might have been involved. That would go back the other way. I don't think that's fair to them because it didn't happen. But going into the day, when that day started, I had a good sense K'Andre Miller was going to join the Calgary Flames. That's the way it felt. And then obviously went a different direction.
So he's 25. He's a left shot D. There's another similar piece that you mentioned, Bowen Byram. It seems like reading the tea leaves, the challenge here is that he had an incredible run with Colorado in the playoffs in 2022, and he's been very mediocre since and wants more opportunity, wants a big salary, and the Sabres want a lot for him. So what the hell are you buying if you're going to add Bowen Byram?
Well, he thinks he's a number one defenseman. He's a top pairing guy. He's a power play guy. And I think that's why most teams have explored the interest in Bo Byram. Like LA really liked the idea of Bo Byram. They did because, there are many nights where the LA Kings are rolling out a 5-forward power play. Drew Doughty can't do everything, right? So they look at him as helping that cause. And this is where, again, and he's a restricted free agent. He's not an unrestricted free agent, but Darren Ferris is the agent here. He doesn't mind spinning the Ferris wheel, and he does it with a lot of his guys. And he's looking at it. He's all right. Well, Byram's 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. He has arbitration rights. If he goes to ARB and you have him for 1 more year, I'm sure the message to Kevin Adams is you lose your leverage, because nobody is going to trade for Bo Byram with 1 year left, because he is going to walk into free agency. No different than Mitch Marner just did. Sam Bennett is the outlier here because he stayed with the Florida Panthers. Again, a client of Darren Ferris. So right now it sure feels like all of the pressure is on Kevin Adams to get the best deal that he can. And, I reported on it yesterday, and I'm not convinced that the threat is gone of an offer sheet on Bo Byram. Calgary for sure is interested in him. Mentioned LA, Vegas fellas, they still might not be done. I heard you as we're coming into the segment talking about Rasmus Andersson. And I agree with everything you said. Sure, he's got 1 year left. I can appreciate Craig Conroy and management of the Flames wanting to be patient and saying, yeah, he'll be fine. He can come to camp. We'll start the season and see if the offers get better. They had phenomenal offers. Phenomenal for Rasmus Andersson. One from LA that'd blow your socks off. Not players, but anyway, a hell of an offer, and he wouldn't go. He wouldn't go. He wouldn't.
So where are the offers for him as a rental?
Not as good as they were, and maybe, but again, I can appreciate in that market that guys are, and I'm not saying you guys are critical of the position that Rasmus Andersson is in right now, but he negotiated and earned his contract. And with that contract comes the right of saying no. And I think Ottawa had a package ready. Columbus had a package ready. LA had a package ready. Vegas made an offer that they thought was fair. The Flames didn't think it was fair, obviously, or he'd be there, because as you guys talked about, that appears to be where he wants to go. But this is a spicy one. And it probably isn't going to get less spicy unless he relents and says, okay, I'll go. But unless it's a perfect scenario, he's not going, because he's not going to extend with any of the teams we've talked about.
Does it not make, I don't know. Maybe I'm just grumpy because I had too much fun on Canada Day, but it just feels like you want players to have say and the right to go. And yes, he earned the contract, and I think he's been way underpaid for what he offers.
Yeah.
But they really, and I guess there's a change. You said it with Adams in Buffalo. You better move him now. And is that just a learning curve? Maybe almost an overplay on Conroy's, or where you can't go to this, because once you get to that last year, you don't get as much for the rental if teams want to re-sign them.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to move them earlier and recognize that you can't get the deal done.
Yeah.
Or does this just scream there's going to be, I keep saying it because I believe it, it's baseball, and the Habs are going to be in the situation to keep collecting the higher end players and the better players, and the have-nots are going to groom them into that. And yes, you might have a stab while your team's growing and you maybe go on a run, but at some point, all these higher end, like Florida's and those, I don't know, those teams are going to keep taking it. Like, how is LA not a situation where Rasmus Andersson wants to go play? What in the F are we talking about?
I don't, well, other than the taxes. Yeah.
What about just his only chance of free agency in his whole career?
What's that?
It's his only chance of free agency his whole career.
Is that
not reasonable to say that I just want to see what's out there? Don't ask me to commit to a place I've never lived, sight unseen. Like, I've basically been there one day at a time my whole life.
Agreed. But it's fine to do that. And I'll use the Mitch Marner experience different because, he's a pending unrestricted free agent. But both sides in Toronto decided before the start of the year that the focus had to be on hockey. It wasn't going to be on a contract. That didn't mean that Brad Treliving couldn't go to Marner and his camp, Ferris, and have a conversation about an extension at varying points of the year. And undoubtedly that happened. But that takes some intestinal fortitude as a player, right? So now you do have to focus on being as good as you can be. And he was in the regular season, right? And then things didn't go great for him. for the Toronto Maple Leafs in general. He wasn't alone in the criticism that they deserved in the playoffs, but he stuck to it, man. He stuck to it for a year. And that's what Andersson's going to have to look forward to. And you know, sure, I mean, there's been lots of speculation around the Vegas Golden Knights and the shenanigans and all that. I don't buy it. I don't. And I want to remind people that McCrimmon and the Golden Knights tried to acquire Mitch Marner no fewer than twice, actually, I think 3 times, including at the trade deadline, where there was a 3-way trade, as we recall, right? Toronto, Carolina, Vegas. He waived to go to Vegas. He would not waive to go to Carolina. So the interest from the Vegas Golden Knights and Mitch Marner is pretty obvious. So why are we talking about everything that went on behind the scenes and this is illegal and this, all of that stuff? You know, Marner stuck it out. So, you know, is Rasmus Andersson going to be able to deal with that? You guys talked about it. Whether it's only a distraction if he allows it to become a distraction, but he's not going to manage the media. Yeah. He's going to get asked about it through training camp, and not only in Calgary, every city that the Flames visit, he's going to get asked about it. He's going to get, certainly in the second half of the season. And maybe that becomes a distraction. It doesn't if his game remains solid and he doesn't allow it to be. But I still feel like if Calgary can make the Bo Byram deal somehow, some way, then just make a deal for Andersson in Vegas and move on.
Yeah, that's kind of we talked about this last week.
He's not lived in Vegas either, so all of a sudden,
yeah, that's true. He don't, loves service away. With the LA, like obviously that feels like it was contingent on him signing an extension.
Yeah,
of all is as opposed to his no trade, because he has what 6 teams, so it's a small no trade.
It is,
or no move. Were these other deals, did they all fall into the signing an extension contingency, or was it no trade? Because it's what it is here, and Rhett was talking about it, and I think a lot of the fans feel like this is, again, Conroy and the Flames are getting the runaround by the players. The players have so much sway. And I get it. If you're asking him, hey, would you sign an extension with Team X? And he says no. That's a step further. You're now asking, it's a great deal for us. We'd get a lot more in return.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what you get in return at the end of the day if I'm Rasmus Andersson. That's great for you. But 8 years, the next 9 years of my life potentially with the extension. So I get it. But I can't help but wonder. You've now passed the draft and free agency. You're into the summer. Money's been spent. Yeah, the cap's going up, but still I just wonder how it feels like it does become really hard to get max value. And I don't know what max value even looks like. I feel like if the offers would have been intriguing, you'd have had it done by now, but I might be wrong.
Well, no, again, I'll repeat myself. I know the LA offer, my understanding is that it was terrific. And there were other offers that, I'm not saying Conroy would have pulled the trigger on immediately, but this is all part of that dance. And I would assume that, sure, if you're giving up the assets that you're giving up to acquire this player, the reason you want the player is on a longer term, right? And I do understand and I do appreciate that position. But like Rhett said, I mean, it's not like you're getting sent to an outpost when you're getting traded to Los Angeles. And taxes are taxes, and basically the vast majority of the market of the National Hockey League. But he decided he's going to dig in.
In the CBA, I think it was an NFL trade the other day. Yeah. I don't remember. Instead of allowing the no trades, like I don't know if you could ever get rid of the no trades or the no movement clauses. They don't really mean anything anyway, except you're trying to screw the team over, I guess. But blah 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 blah. As opposed to a no movement, what about a movement clause where it's you get paid? Okay, there's no movement clauses anymore, but there are movement
payments.
Okay, if you want to trade me, I can't get a no move, but you're going to trade me. It's $5 million, or you know what I mean? Whatever it might be, and maybe that doesn't even count against the cap, but it allows the teams to go, Jesus, like we're trying to do right by all these players, and this is how they hold it to us.
Yeah.
I just don't know that I'm a player, but I'm actually worried that the other side doesn't have as much say as they should. They're the guys writing the bloody checks,
Don't have
and the players are being pouty pants about it. Like, come on.
Yeah, it is easy to say don't give them, right? And there have been managers like Lou Lamoriello hated, all of the trade protection, because it buckles you down. That's pretty obvious, but it depends on the player that you're talking about. Your Rasmus Andersson's a pretty good player. Like that would almost be automatic, wouldn't it? When you're having that negotiation, the fact that he's got a limited no trade might be considered a victory. But you do, like, from the financial, I understand what you're saying, Rhett, and it won't happen because it won't, because it further would encourage the haves and the have-nots. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the New York Rangers have nothing but money. If they can cherry pick the best players by throwing in $5 million, that's what they're going to do, to convince the team, or however the dynamic of that works. You are seeing. Go ahead.
Well, Pinder brought up they used to be able to say the conditional, right?
Yeah. So you used to have a conditional pick for if a guy re-signed, and that would alleviate all the issues Craig Conroy is facing, because you can just say, all right, LA, here's the package. Yeah. And if he extends there, we add another first. Yeah. Okay, Vegas, you're getting Noah Hannafin. This is a fair deal for a rental, but if he signs with you guys, you got to tack on another first. That tool was taken away, and I really don't understand why, because you can see the conundrum it's led to for the Flames with Rasmus.
Sure. And I don't have an answer for you as to why it would be removed. For this very scenario, you do have other means of kind of sweetening the pot. Like, teams will wait until a certain day, like get past July 1st. We'll eat the signing bonus, whatever that annual sign. Sometimes it's big money. Yeah. It's not just a couple $100,000. Like, it can be millions of dollars on July 1st. Mm-hmm. And teams will say that, all right, let's agree to the trade. We can't announce it until July 2nd because we'll eat the signing bonuses. So there are mechanisms, but I honestly, I don't have an answer for you as to why they removed that conditional pick. I don't, because it would make a lot of sense.
No, and I'm not looking for you to spill on anything, but you mentioned K'Andre Miller and the Flames. Do you believe that was an Andersson deal, or was that something that was maybe separate?
No, I don't think it was Andersson. I think it was separate. Potentially a forward is what I was told. But because New York, when we started yesterday, we were basically 95% sure that Gavrikov was going to end up with the New York Rangers.
Yeah, it's been the rumor for months.
Yeah. And K'Andre Miller, that he seemed to be the most likely trade target. And, there are other things, obviously, the Kreider deal that Chris Drury has done that put him in a position so that they could do this. And I don't think the Rangers are done yet either, but I think it was K'Andre Miller for a forward and whatever else. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you have the answer to this either. I've been asked 2 or 3 times in the last day. How does Florida get to sign a 37-year-old to a 6-year deal? Are there no guardrails? Is there nothing?
No.
Like, can you sign him? How old is too old?
Well, it's funny. I think Jeff O'Neill said on air, by year 3 of this thing, he's going to be a $6 million skills coach.
Yeah.
Something like that.
There are last year, right? Like, it's just guys that you knew aren't going to be healthy till the end.
Yeah. No guardrails. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know this, I heard it somewhere in the travels yesterday, that Billy Zito or Florida actually reached out to the league to say, hey, we're going to do this, just giving you the heads up. So how they make the money work moving forward, year 3, 4, 5, 6, who knows? I mean, maybe the guy just defies Mother Nature, Father Time, and he's playing in the league at that point.
Yeah, like 37. My math is not good. I hate when math gets involved. With 37 plus 6, that's a big number. I just wondered if there would be.
Well, have you watched Ovechkin play? You watch him play this season.
Perry?
I mean, Corey Perry's another one. I mean, You just got to change your game, obviously. Like, there's not a lot of mileage on Alex Ovechkin game by game anymore.
Yeah.
He gets to a spot and just stays there until the puck arrives.
What your thoughts on Vancouver? It was a tumultuous year, to say the least there. But Demko, Garland, and Besser all end up staying. I guess maybe the Besser and how that came to be because he signed after July, after it hit. But they're keeping the band together in a lot of the ways.
I want to give Adam Foote some credit here. And maybe it's just pure extension of Rick Tocchet in that bench. I think Brock Besser primarily stays because he was comfortable with Rick Tocchet, has a great relationship with Adam Foote. He knows what to expect. I'm sure Patrick Allvin, the general manager, said, hey, we're going to start the year, unless something just pops in our lap here. We're going to start the year with Elias Pettersson as our number one center. Philip Hedl is healthy. He's going to be our number two. But we're having trade conversations. And if there is a possibility of adding another center, a 3A or a 2C, that's what we're going. So he probably, collectively, they probably sold Brock Besser on, hey, this isn't a bad spot. And Besser I think he has a girlfriend. I don't think they're married. But anyway, they like their life in Vancouver. I can tell you when the day started, talking to someone close to Brock, he had at least 10 teams that were positioning offers in a myriad of ways. Short term, lots of money with a good team and a bad team. Long term, lower AAV with a good team and a bad team. Like, what do you want to do? We'll sign it all.
Yeah.
So I think in the end, he just stayed with being comfortable in Vancouver.
Yeah. What do you make of the Oilers? We know what the Florida Panthers did to remain. They kept their guys, and they're going for it again for the Oilers. It's been back-to-back Cup Finals. Yeah. Perry leaves. We've seen a lot of players leave.
Brown,
the goalies are the same as of today, as of this recording. They add Mangiapane yesterday, so that's some scoring there. I know, and it's probably overblown, but it's very much what can they do to keep Connor happy? Is Connor happy? Have they shown enough to keep Connor? I'm guessing the answer is probably no, but you're pretty limited there with what the dough is. I guess with what they're able to do, the job done by the Oilers to this part.
Well, I'm more curious about what you guys think of Mangiapane. I mean, his market was decent. There's no doubt about that. Brad Treliving, I'm sure, kicked tires, as a lot of teams did. They felt like they needed somebody who can play with Leon Draisaitl. Can Mangiapane play with Leon Draisaitl? I mean, we're going to find out, but that's the thinking with that signing. And, they were bargain shopping to a degree. They cleared the cap space, moved the pieces that they did, mostly because Draisaitl's extension kicks in, and the Bouchard extension obviously gobbles up a big chunk of the salary cap. So Bowman didn't have a whole lot to work with. And I think it's probably best case scenario, because when, I just talked about Vancouver shopping, Toronto's got to shop for a top six. Montreal made a sweetheart deal in Noah Dobson, but they need help up front. They were going hard after Jordan Kyrou in St. Louis and didn't find a way. So anyway, there's a lot of teams that are in the trade market. So at least Edmonton gets something back. I guess the one that surprised me the most was Corey Perry. I thought with some of the creativity that we've seen around the league, with Stales getting Giroux done, Tavares with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Matt Duchene with the Dallas Stars, Jamie Benn with the Dallas Stars, go down the list, that Edmonton could find a creative way to do it, because fan favorite, saw him perform in the playoffs, basically has said, look, I feel like I've got one more good year in me, but that's how tight it is. That's how tight it is for the salary cap and the Edmonton Oilers. They just couldn't afford to have Corey Perry on board.
It's wild, their winger depth. Like it's tough to argue having McDavid, Draisaitl, Henrique, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins as center options, but I mean, Zach Hyman's a great winger, and after that, you're talking about, okay, well, we'll put RNH on the wing, and now it's Bud Colson or Mangiapane. Guys that played fourth line roles last year.
I know.
Oh, well, Trent Frederick, and he's like, yeah, he was a great bottom six winger. Yeah. Well, what about Kapanen? Well, he was on waivers. He's a fourth line guy. Like, you're literally putting scraps around that center group in the forward ranks.
Well, and that's why when you ask, is Connor happy? I mean, he's not a dummy. He understands the restraints and he's a part of it, right? Like he wants his big slice of the pie and he's going to get that big slice of the salary cap coming up. No rush, by the way, on that front, but it'll get done. Inevitably, it'll get done. We're all curious as to what is that term going to look like. Obviously, Edmonton's going to want to lock him up for as long as they possibly can, but maybe McDavid goes the path that Bouchard went, goes with a 4-year contract extension. So, but McDavid has to be paying attention to what's going on around the league. I mean, guys, are the Florida Panthers any worse than they were the night they won the Stanley Cup? I don't think they are. Like they kept their 3 primary free agents. Okay, Nate Schmidt probably would have stayed in Florida, but he resurrected his career and there was a payday waiting for him and he got paid. So good on Nate Schmidt. But they replaced Nate Schmidt with Jeff Petrie. Well, is that really a significant drop-off for the Florida Panthers? I don't think it is. So if you're Connor McDavid and you're Leon Draisaitl, and by the way, the lost Gulletson, who's been named head coach, of course, of the Dallas Stars, and he's the McDavid Draisaitl whisperer was in Edmonton. So they're looking around going, Jesus, now, if we're lucky enough to make it back to the Stanley Cup final out of the West, are we better?
Yeah.
Are we better than we were in Game 5 and Game 6 against a juggernaut team in Florida? And my answer is no, they're not. And I don't know how they get better.
And Dregs, the challenge is you're not asking Connor McDavid if the last 2 years have been good, because they have. And you're not asking him if they could be competitive this year.
Yeah.
You're asking him to pick from 2 years out until an undecided amount of time.
Right.
They don't have a system. They're up against it on the cap. They're already the oldest team in the league last year.
Yeah.
It's becoming a tougher sell, in my opinion.
Yeah. And now you get 20+ million locked in on 2 defensemen, right? In Bouchard
One's
and
earning
Darnell.
yes.
I mean, it's a tough one. They're just, we know the salary cap is going up next year and then it's leaping again the year after that and the year after that. But is that really going to change a whole bunch of stuff? I mean,
No.
Your good players always come up and need deals and they're just going to get that bigger piece.
Yeah, and nobody's going to take a discount to go to Edmonton.
No one did yesterday.
No one's staying. Like Darnell Nurse wasn't going to play for less to stay in Edmonton, and I don't again, but in Florida they will apparently.
Well, and the other thing here, and I don't know why people get so offended by it, but you look at that, like, God love Edmonton. Who wouldn't want to play with Connor McDavid? Of course you would, but. You look at the aggressiveness of Kelly McCrimmon and the Vegas Golden Knights. They always get the best players. The best available players always end up in Vegas or in with the 2 Florida teams. Dallas has done a nice job. Well, that's not changing anytime soon. So unless you draft and you develop and you're willing to be patient with some of these young guys, or you overpay. That's what the Canadian teams have to do.
Winnipeg.
That's what they have to do. Winnipeg, we haven't talked about Winnipeg, took it right between the eyes on Brock Besser staying in Vancouver, right between the lookers, because, they were willing to overpay Brock Besser to replace Nikolaj Ehlers. Couldn't do it. So now what? It's just, they sign guys by committee, Koepke and Tanner Pearson and Clegg. I mean,
Walker Dewar.
Yeah.
Flame Walker Dewar. Yeah. You mentioned Ehlers. As of this recording, he's not been nailed down.
Top dog.
Thoughts on him?
Well, I mean, I believe the speculation. Carolina, we know, is keenly interested. And every team has checked in on him, right? I mean, there again, if you're looking for a plan B, Toronto would love Nikolaj Ehlers. Winnipeg would love to bring him back. I mean, just go on and on and on. Weirdly, and this is, I don't know Ehlers very well. Interviewed him a bunch. Seems like a pleasant dude. Heck of a hockey player. Always willing to help in the community and all that. Doesn't like the spotlight even a little bit. And spotlight isn't that bright in Winnipeg. I mean, you go there, you play your games, you do your media. You want to go fishing. You're 20 minutes from a lake to do some fishing, hunting, do whatever you do. fans aren't parked out front of your house is what I'm saying, right? So, he's choosing a lifestyle very, very carefully, to the point Bobby Mack reported on, like, Ehlers is such a cool customer. He was golfing yesterday during free agency. He's playing golf in Denmark. Don't worry about it. That's what I got an agent for. We'll figure it out. So, yeah, I suspect that'll get done in a day or two. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like Carolina would be the front runner.
Yeah. And maybe manifesting things, watching Colorado yesterday, and Jonathan Drouin goes to the Islanders. Like, well, that was kind of that's Nate's line mate from junior, and it was a big thing. He came in, they let him go for $4 million a year. Is it possible they're keeping their powder dry if some kind of a player wants to come and play in Denver this year? Is there any chance? Then it'd be like, geez, I guess we shouldn't have got spent that $4 million on Drouin. We could have used it a better way. Yeah,
but don't forget, they don't have the LTIR on Landeskog anymore, right? And that was money that they would invest in these pieces. They didn't get Jonathan Toews. They were gutted by that. I'm not sure how they would have made that work anyway. I mean, there's always a way to make it work. You move guys out, right? Or you've got an LTIR situation that is going to present itself at the start of the year, and you're fine until you're not fine, and you've got to remedy it. But yeah, they thought they were getting Toews until they didn't, and so I am a little bit surprised that they didn't try and invest in other areas. I don't know what sort of package was presented to Jonathan Drouin. I heard the San Jose Sharks made up just a enormous offer. And that would make sense because there's a team that's just scraping to get to the floor. Yeah. Like, you get $5 million, you get $5 million. Like, honestly, like that. But to Drouin's credit, I think that, with all due respect to San Jose, if that's the way it played out, he wanted to go to a place where he felt like, they're on the upswing and there's an opportunity to win, and we'll see if that plays out. So do you get McKenzie's parking spot? Is there like the Bob Father office? Your pay has to go up now because you just become more senior. Okay, so I will tell you a story. No, I don't get his parking spot. Mine is way down the way. So I will be talking about that. Yeah. We have dressing rooms, a couple of the fortunate few. And I'm one of those, and Bob is right next to mine, but I like the layout of his better. So I might take that. I haven't decided that. Not a boy, Drake. You got to fight Duthie? Is it Duthie? Is he the guy? Yeah. Like Duthie is front row center, right in front of the doors. And then Bob is like 2 spots from James. Gino Retta's in there too, but Gino's just old. So he needs to, like he's got a cane, and next year Walker. I mean, he's got to roll himself in pretty soon there. But no, the quick Bob story though is, so when Sportsnet got the first round of the NHL rights, was that 12 years ago? How many years ago that is? So TSN was terrified. They're both gone. They've moved on to Stu Johnson as the commissioner of the CFL, right? He and Mark Milliere, who was the head of TSN at the time, met us in Ottawa. We were doing a game, and Bob and I and James individually, and said, we're tearing up your deals. They were scared we were going to jump ship. It was just a beautiful situation. Seriously. So here's your deal. So then independently, the negotiations start. And my number was nice. I liked it. But I said, no. Here's the number I need. And I said, and you know why? Because Bobby Mack is going to retire one day. And I exaggerated. I said in the next 6-7 years. Well, he went a lot longer than that. 6, 7. And they went, oh, geez, that's a good thought. Never thought of that. So I stung him. So that was Bobby's, that was his retirement gift to me a long time ago. Yeah. I wonder, his number may have gone up because of that too. Maybe stick around for a few extra years. Nah, I talked to him today. I was trying to lure him into one of these things, like a podcast, or he's like, no, I'm not doing it. No. He's made that pretty clear. I know at the end of every July 1, he was very happy to let everyone know, I'm going to the lake. I'm done. Bobby Martin. Yeah, I'm out of here. But he's just one of the good guys. And there's a lot of people who
came out yesterday on social media, right?
Yeah.
He's taught people a lot. There was a real kind of respect and ethic way of doing things that led to Bob being the most respected guy, because he's not up to, like, yeah, everybody wants to break trades, but he was not going to do it at the risk of either being wrong or sewering a source or anything like that. It was that ethical way of doing it.
Agreed.
That made him the best.
Yeah, I mean, a great mentor for me, 100%. Like just the most competitive person that I know in media, probably will ever meet, but ethically, we all bend the rules from time to time, and you creep up to that line of where, well, don't be surprised if this happens, but if this doesn't happen, maybe that happens, that sort of thing. But a manager reached out to me after word broke, of course, that Bob wasn't coming back, and I thought he put it beautifully. He just said, of all the things, Boomer, that you just talked about, Bob, the pioneer of the Hockey Insider business, no doubt. I'm not sitting here without Bob McKenzie. Elliot Friedman is not doing what he's still working at the Score, if not for Bob McKenzie, with all due respect. That's the truth. But this general manager said to me, Bob always would grind for the facts, get the information, but when he reported, he didn't try and hurt anybody in the process. The player, either team, anyone involved, there was always a positive spin to his reporting, and I'm mindful of that. And it's also why I don't engage in social media nearly as much as I once did. I don't need the noise or the nonsense. That's Bobby Mack.
So Summer, what's happening?
I've got a charity golf event on Friday, and then Saturday morning she's wheels up, heading west, in the Sierra AT4. I actually just cut a big hunk of foam, 58 inches long, 37 inches wide, to fit in the back seat of the truck for Tiny the Great Dane.
Yeah.
Gotta look after the Great Dane.
Gotta be comfy, yeah.
Yeah, so we drive to Sault Ste. Marie Saturday morning, Thunder Bay on Sunday, spend half the day with my daughters there, and then the rest of the journey on Monday, I guess. So we'll be at the Cabbage on Lake of the Prairie by Monday or Tuesday morning at the latest.
God, it sounds nice. I might be knocking on your door.
Great to
Come
make
on,
I gotta
buddy.
go out there, so
I'm there.
all
I'll be
right.
lassoing walleye by
Attaboy.
Thursday's men's diet at the old Lake of the Prairies golf course, so I probably won't do that, but
Yeah.
Friday the latest.
Yeah. You got a lot on your plate. It's
Well, I'm gonna have a lot on my plate a week from now.
yeah. All right, fella. We appreciate you. You're the best. People love that we get you on here. So thanks for all the time you put in with us.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I look forward to next season, assuming that we're going to continue on with this
Damn right.
wonderful relationship. And
Yes.
bought a nice fancy Blackstone, which has been added to the family out west. So I'll be sending
New
you some
addition.
breakfast.
Congrats.
Send pictures.
In the
For some of us,
kitchen.
some of us are far more excited and interested in that stuff than
Wow.
Nikolaj
Cares about
Ehlers,
Walker
but-
Dewar.
Exactly.
Blackstone.
Exactly. I'll send you pics, boys. You guys
Very
have a great
nice.
summer.
See you, Dregs.
Thanks.
There you go. He is our boy, Darren Dreger, on the Insider Hotline, a presentation of Crystal Waters Plumbing and Heating, your crystal clear choice for home comfort. 403-219-4100, or check them out at crystalclearcalgary.com. Hey, buddies. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.